"You'd make it awkward for everyone, Mom." That's what my daughter said, standing in my living room, scrolling through her phone while she talked to me. She didn't even look up, just tossed the words out like she was reading off a grocery list. "It's not that we don't want you there. It's just, Kevin's parents are coming, and his college friends, and you know how you get at big gatherings. You'd probably want to leave early anyway." How I get. Like I was some kind of problem to be managed. Like 37 years of raising her, supporting her through 2 failed engagements, paying off her student loans, co-signing her first house. All of that had been reduced to how I get. "I could just come for a few days," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I wouldn't have to stay the whole week." She sighed, the kind of sigh that told me she'd already made up her mind before she walked through my door. "Mom, it's a beach house. There's only so many rooms. Kevin's mom already claimed the one with the best view. And honestly, you don't even like the beach. You always complained about sand." I complained about sand once, in 1994, at my granddaughter's 3rd birthday party. But sure, let that define me forever. "When is it?" I asked. "July, 4th week. We rented this gorgeous place in Outer Banks. The kids are so excited." She smiled then, finally looking up, but the smile wasn't for me. It was for the idea of her perfect vacation, her perfect family photo, her perfect Instagram grid. A grid that apparently had no room for me. "Sounds lovely," I said. "I hope you have a wonderful time." She left 20 minutes later, kissing my cheek, like she'd done me a favor by stopping by. After her car pulled away, I stood at the window for a long time. The hydrangeas were blooming. The neighbor's dog was barking at nothing. Everything looked exactly the same as it had an hour ago, but something inside me had shifted. Click, like a switch being flipped. They thought I'd just sit here and wait, water my plants, watch my shows, be available when they needed a babysitter or a check. But I was done waiting. The next morning, I drove to the library. Not for books. I hadn't been able to focus on reading lately. Too many thoughts crowding my head. I went for the computers. A young woman at the desk helped me search for cruises. "Alaska," I said, surprising myself. "I want to see Alaska." She smiled. "Bucket list?" "No, just a list." I wrote down everything. Departure dates, cabin options, excursion packages. My handwriting was slower than it used to be, but still neat, still mine. That night, I spread it all out on the kitchen table. Harold's old reading lamp flickered twice before settling into its familiar hum. He'd rewired it himself 40 years ago, said it would last forever. He was right about the lamp, wrong about himself. I booked the cruise at 11:32 p.m. 14 days, Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway, Glacier Bay, a balcony cabin, because I deserved to watch the water whenever I wanted. I didn't tell anyone, not my daughter, not my son who lived 3 states away and called once a month if I was lucky, not even my neighbor Gloria, who noticed everything and would have insisted I talk it out with my family. Some things don't need talking. They need doing. Packing took time. I wanted each item to earn its place. Warm layers, waterproof jacket, comfortable shoes with good grip. I packed Harold's old compass, the brass one he carried on every camping trip we ever took. Not because I needed it. Ships have GPS now. I packed it because holding it made me feel less alone. The night before I left, I sat on my porch and watched the fireflies drift across the yard. Somewhere, my daughter was probably finalizing her beach house checklist, making sure everyone had matching swimsuits for the family photo. Everyone except me. I didn't feel bitter. I felt clear. At dawn, I called a taxi. The driver was a woman about my age with silver hair and a no-nonsense expression. Airport? Seattle. Then a ship. She nodded approvingly. Good for you. Life's too short to sit around. I smiled. She had no idea how right she was. The ship was enormous. White and gleaming, it rose from the Seattle harbor like a floating city. I'd never been on a cruise before. Harold and I always talked about it, always said someday, but someday never came. Now it had. My cabin was on deck 7, small but perfect. The balcony faced west, toward open water. I unpacked slowly, hanging my clothes, setting Harold's compass on the nightstand. Then I made myself a cup of tea with the packets I'd brought from home and sat outside, watching the city shrink as we pulled away from shore. The first day at sea, I mostly wandered, found the library, the quiet lounge, the little cafe that served pastries at 3 p.m. I ate dinner alone at a table by the window. The waiter called me ma'am with genuine warmth, not the patronizing kind. No one asked if I was waiting for someone. No one assumed I was lost. On the second evening, I met Ruth. She was sitting alone at the bar, nursing a glass of white wine and reading a thick paperback with a cracked spine. About my age, maybe a few years older, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the posture of someone who had spent her life refusing to shrink. "That seat taken?" I asked. She looked up and smiled. "Only by ghosts. Sit." We talked for 2 hours. She was a retired professor from Portland. Never married, never wanted to. Her nieces had stopped calling years ago. "They got busy," she said with a shrug. "People do. Mine got busy too. Busy is just another word for, you're not a priority." I laughed before I could stop myself. It hurt because it was true. Ruth and I had breakfast together every morning after that. We didn't fill every silence with chatter. Sometimes we just sat, watching the coastline drift by, comfortable in each other's company. She reminded me of who I used to be. Direct, unapologetic, unafraid to take up space. Juneau took my breath away. Mountains rising straight from the water, glaciers glinting blue in the distance, air so clean it almost hurt to breathe. I took a small boat tour to Mendenhall Glacier. The guide, a young man with a beard and kind eyes, helped me onto the vessel without making me feel fragile. "First time?" he asked. "First time for a lot of things." He grinned. "That's the best kind of trip." We got close enough to the glacier to hear it. The deep, ancient groaning of ice shifting and cracking. The guide explained it was calving, pieces breaking off and crashing into the water. I watched a chunk the size of a car fall in slow motion. The splash sent ripples all the way to our boat. I thought about my daughter then, how she'd probably never see something like this. Too busy curating her perfect vacation, too focused on what looked good instead of what felt real. I took a photo, not for anyone else, just for me. That night, I wrote in the small notebook I'd brought, "The glacier doesn't care who's watching. It just keeps moving." Ruth and I had dinner together at the ship's nicest restaurant. She wore a red dress that clashed magnificently with her silver hair. I wore the navy blue one I'd been saving for a special occasion. We ordered wine and appetizers and dessert we didn't need. "My niece posted something today," Ruth said, showing me her phone. A family photo at some resort. Everyone smiling, matching outfits, the whole performance. Look at the caption. I leaned in. "Grateful for family who shows up." "She didn't even invite me," Ruth said, putting the phone away. "I know the feeling." "Of course you do. That's why we're here." She raised her glass. "To showing up for ourselves." I clinked mine against hers. "To showing up." Skagway was a postcard. Wooden boardwalks, old-timey storefronts, mountains so close you could almost touch them. I walked the streets alone, ducking into shops that sold nothing I needed but everything I wanted to look at. In a small gallery tucked between a coffee shop and a jewelry store, I found a painting. A woman standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out at an endless sea. Her back was to the viewer. You couldn't see her face, but you could feel her stillness, her certainty. I bought it without asking the price. The artist, a woman in her 40s with paint-stained fingers, wrapped it carefully. "This one's special," she said. "I painted it after my mother passed. She always wanted to see Alaska, but never made it." "She's seeing it now," I said. "Through you." The woman's eyes glistened. "I like to think so." I carried the painting back to the ship like it was made of glass. That night, I set it against the wall of my cabin and just looked at it. The woman in the painting could have been anyone. Could have been me. Could have been every woman who'd ever been made to feel small and then decided she wasn't. The message came on day 8. I was sitting on my balcony, watching the ship cut through the steel-gray water of Glacier Bay, when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. But something made me look. It was from my granddaughter, Emma. She was 20, the oldest of 3, quiet and observant in a way her mother had never been. "Grandma, are you okay? Mom mentioned you didn't come to the beach house." I had a weird feeling. "Are you home?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back, "I'm not home. I'm in Alaska. On a cruise ship, watching glaciers." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "What? Are you serious?" I took a photo of the view from my balcony, the ice fields stretching into forever, and sent it. Completely serious. She called within seconds. "Grandma, oh my God, you're amazing." I laughed. "I don't know about that." "No, you are. Mom made it sound like you were too tired to come, like you didn't want to deal with it. But you're literally in Alaska, by yourself, by choice." There was a pause. Then, softer, "I wish I could do that. Just go somewhere. Not ask permission." "You can. You don't need permission, Emma. Not from anyone." We talked for almost an hour. She told me about her job, her new apartment, the boyfriend her mother didn't approve of. I told her about Ruth, about the glacier, about the painting I'd bought. "You sound different," she said finally. "Good different?" "Yeah. Like you're actually you." I smiled at the water. "I'm working on it." After we hung up, I sat there until the sun dipped below the horizon, painting everything gold and pink and impossible. Some ties fray, I thought. Others hold. You just have to figure out which ones are worth keeping. The next day, I did something I hadn't planned. I wrote a letter, not to my daughter, not yet, to myself. "Dear Margaret, you spent 67 years making yourself smaller so other people could feel bigger. You said yes when you meant no. You stayed quiet when you wanted to scream. You gave and gave until you forgot you had anything left to give yourself. But you're here now, on a ship in the middle of the ocean, surrounded by strangers who treat you better than your own family. And that's not sad. That's clarifying. You are not too old. You are not too difficult. You are not too anything. You are exactly enough. Remember that." I folded the letter and tucked it into my notebook. The ship docked in Ketchikan that afternoon. I walked through the rain, letting it soak my jacket, feeling more alive than I had in years. In a small cafe overlooking the harbor, I ordered coffee and salmon chowder. The woman at the next table was knitting something blue and soft. She looked up and smiled. "Traveling alone?" "Yes." "First time?" "No," I said, surprising myself. "Not anymore." I didn't write to my daughter until the last night of the cruise. We were sailing back toward Seattle, the journey almost over, and I felt ready, not angry, just done pretending. "Rachel, I know you think I'm too old, too difficult, too whatever to include in your life. I've heard it in your voice for years, even when you didn't say it out loud. You think I don't notice when you sigh, when you check your phone while I'm talking, when you invite me places only to uninvite me later with some excuse about space or timing or how I get. But here's what you don't know. I noticed every time. I just didn't say anything because I thought staying quiet would keep you close. It didn't. You drifted anyway. So I'm done reaching for people who keep stepping back. I went to Alaska while you were at your beach house. I saw glaciers crack and fall into the sea. I made a friend who doesn't make me feel like a burden. I remembered that I used to be someone before I became your mother. I'm not writing this to hurt you. I'm writing it because you should know. I'm still here, still thinking, still choosing, and from now on, I'm choosing myself. Love, Mom, I sent it at midnight. Then I turned off my phone and slept better than I had in months. Her reply came 3 days after I got home. I was sitting in my garden, pruning the roses Harold had planted decades ago, when I saw the notification. Mom, I don't know what to say. I read your letter 5 times. I didn't realize. I didn't think. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but I'm sorry. I read it twice, then I put down my phone and kept pruning. Sorry was a word people used when they wanted to skip the hard part. The hard part was change. And I hadn't seen any evidence of that yet. A week later, Emma showed up at my door. No warning, no phone call first. Just her standing there with a backpack and a hesitant smile. I quit my job, she said. Can I stay here for a while? I want to figure some things out. I opened the door wider. You never had to ask. She stayed for 3 weeks. We cooked together, walked through the neighborhood, talked about everything and nothing. She told me about her dreams, her doubts, the life she was afraid to want because her mother had different plans for her. You remind me of who I want to be, she said one evening, washing dishes while I dried. Grandma, I'm serious. You just decided you deserved better, and then you went and got it. It took me 67 years to figure that out. Better late than never. I handed her a plate. Better late than never. The day before she left, I told her about the changes I was making, the trust account, the legal arrangements, the decisions I'd made while staring at a glacier and feeling, for the first time in years, completely awake. I don't want you to think of it as an obligation, I said. It's not. It's just, you see me. You always have. And I want to make sure that when I'm gone, something goes to someone who actually cared whether I was okay. Her eyes filled. Grandma, don't cry. I hate crying. Makes my makeup run. She laughed, wiping her face. You're not wearing makeup. Details. I never got another letter from Rachel. Not a real one anyway. She texted occasionally. Surface-level things. How's the weather? Did you watch that show? Nothing that required actual engagement. I stopped expecting more. My son called more often now, though. Not because he'd changed, but because Emma had talked to him, told him about Alaska, about the letter, about the fact that I wasn't sitting around waiting anymore. I had no idea you felt that way, he said during one call. You never asked. Silence. Then, yeah, I guess I didn't. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't some tearful reunion where everyone apologized and meant it. Life isn't like that. Some relationships heal, others just settle into something more honest. I could live with honest. On the 1-year anniversary of my cruise, I did something else I hadn't planned. I booked another trip. Norway this time. Fjords and northern lights and small villages where people didn't rush. Ruth was coming with me. You sure you can handle 2 weeks of my company? She asked on the phone. I've handled worse. Charming as ever. I hung up smiling. That night, I wrote in my notebook again. Not a list, not a letter, just one sentence. You are never too old to surprise yourself. The painting from Skagway hangs in my living room now. The woman at the cliff, looking out at the endless sea. Sometimes I stand in front of it and think about all the years I spent looking back, waiting for someone to tell me I mattered. Now I just look forward, and when people ask if I'm traveling alone, I say yes, and I mean it as a point of pride. If you've ever felt invisible, too old, too slow, too inconvenient, hear this. You're not done. You're not defined by how others see you. You are breath and choice and 1,000 unwritten days. Start walking. Start now. If this story moved you, leave a comment. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, it's never too late to choose yourself.